Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco. Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review Insidious Chapter 2. First off, I want to kind of confess something it's pretty funny, I guess. This whole time, I haven't seen a lot of these bad modern horror movies. I've stayed away from them as long as I could. And in continuing with this ghost movie week, I just thought I better watch the rest of the series, or maybe just these first two. I'm not really sure at this point, but I found out something that was pretty funny because I had this strange kind of like delusion, I guess, or this belief that in Insidious 1, the red-faced demon, that weird demon that looks like Darth Maul, as people have pointed out, I thought that he was named Bagul, but it turns out that Bagul is the demon from the Sinister movie series. And so, all these years, I thought that in the whole Insidious series that they were just facing off against this red-faced demon and that he was named Bagul, because honestly the name fits the red-faced demon a lot more than it fits the one from Sinister, that now that I see it on Google Images. So I just thought that I should share that, because I could have sworn that this series, the whole Insidious series, was all centered around the red demon. I thought that's what the whole series was revolved around, was like him fucking with this family, but apparently not. He's not even in Insidious 2. So overall, before I get into the notes, because I have quite a few notes, surprisingly, I kind of enjoyed this movie. I felt like they improved on the first one somewhat. I felt like they listened to some of the criticisms that maybe people had back then. I'm not really sure because I didn't watch it back then and I didn't review it back then, but it's always nice to see when they try to improve things in the sequels, because that's what sequels are for. In a way, sequels are there so that you can redeem things that are bad in the past. A lot of the time people just assume that they're just to make money, and it's like, no, you can make a really good sequel and it redeems past bad things in a movie series while still making money. It doesn't have to be one or the other. For instance, obviously Top Gun 2, which is the example that a lot of people will continue to use forever. And there's a good reason for that, because that movie, the people who made it said, look, that original movie sucks. Let's make a movie that's actually good, and let's fix all the problems that movie had. And they made a very good movie. And it also made a lot of money. And I think that at least they tried to make up for the first movie in this one, in this Insidious Chapter 2. I wasn't totally a fan of it. Obviously, it was still heavily flawed for a multitude of reasons. I mean, I wrote so many notes. At a certain point, I just stopped taking notes, because I was like, I'm gonna write a whole book of little things that are that should have been, that shouldn't have been, So the movie starts off with a flashback of something that we've already heard about before, of the main guy, the father is a child, and Elise is a younger woman coming in to solve his problem and figure out what's going on with him. We already heard about all that, but now we get to see it for real, and it just feels very superfluous and unnecessary. And basically, it's a jump scare scavenger hunt, and that's something that they do in almost every modern horror movie, is that you have characters, they wander around a dark place, it's very quiet, and then all of a sudden something jumps out and there's a very loud noise. And that's what you call a jump scare scavenger hunt. You'll notice that if you watch these bad movies. That happens over and over and over again. And let's just say I hate jump scares. I think that they're the stupidest scares ever. They're not scary at all. A lot of the times they come off as either annoying or funny. Especially like because of the loud noise, because of the duh, that they have to play to make sure that that it's scary. You can't be scared yourself. You have to hear the duh so that you're like, oh no. I hate jump scares so much. Like they are one of the worst things about horror movies ever. About any horror movie in history. Like jump scares, they're rarely effective. They're rarely good. They're rarely worth the time. Mostly they're just annoying. And I want to take this time to tell a story about like a real life jump scare that was a total failure. And it's actually a really embarrassing story. But it's really funny because like it just demonstrates how in real life jump scares are not scary, and a lot of the times they just come off as annoying, or they don't even work at all. So if you guys have seen the Super Dumbasses mockumentary that I did in 2021, which was like a failed project, one of the guys from that movie, he threw Vishy Swa, the Indian guy in the movie. If you haven't seen it yet, he threw this. I don't know why we were watching a Halloween movie at Christmas. I think it was the Christmas party. I'm not really sure though. I mean, it must have been. So he was throwing this Christmas party, and I think that I talked about this in my writing before. But for some reason, he really wanted to watch a movie at some point in his bad party. And there were hardly any people there. I mean, he tried to invite some people, but then he didn't really have the balls to invite, a lot of people. He didn't even ask. He wanted me to actually ask people for him. Like, he asked me to ask his crush to go to his party. He couldn't handle that. And it's like, no, I'm not doing that. So at his party, it was just him, me, these two guys who were kind of like DJing the party downstairs. They didn't want to watch the movie. And then there were these two girls, and one of them, she was like a huge bitch, and the other one was just like another bitch. And they were friends. They just wanted to come because they lived near him for their whole lives, so they hung out with him sometimes, and just kind of used him as a distraction. And they came to this party, and this party was like a terrible Christmas party. I mean, it is definitely like one of the worst parties that I've ever been to. And I haven't even been to very many parties. I think I've only ever been to like 2 handfuls worth of parties. And I've been to some pretty bad parties. I mean, some pretty embarrassing moments that, they're just so bad I don't even want to talk about. And then the others are just like, meh. And then there was one that I skipped out on that I really regretted skipping out on, and I wonder how bad or good that party was. But anyways, they wanted to watch Ouija. It was either Ouija 1 or Ouija 2. And they're sitting upstairs in the living room in the dark. And I was staying downstairs with the two guys, and I was playing basketball with this little mini basketball game thing. It was very fun. But I got kind of bored, and I got this idea of maybe I could sneak upstairs and I could go around through the kitchen into the living room, and the couch is facing away, so it's facing towards the TV, so none of those three people would have noticed me coming. And maybe I could go up behind the couch and scare them or something, and and that'd be funny. And then I'd go back downstairs or stay up there or something. Well, and I hate even thinking about this story. Well, I was walking up to the couch. I was being very, very quiet, I swear. I was not making any noise. And then I got up right behind the couch, and I put my hands on the couch, and just as I was about to think okay, what do I do now? Do I just go boo, or do I go rah? What do I do? And right as I was about to do that, the one of the two girls, it was the main one, the one that the main one, I'm not going to say her name. She saw me, and then she just stared at me and glared at me if I was doing something wrong by even being there. And so I was just oh, fuck it. I'm giving up. I'm not gonna jump scare anything. And so I was just okay, whatever. And it was actually pretty funny because Vichy Swa, he was the only one out of the three who was scared of the movie. And so he was sitting there going "Ugh!" And he was hugging his pillow too. He had this little pillow, and he was hugging it because the movie was so scary. And he's 15 or 16 years old and shit. And so I was okay, I give up, I surrender. And I left, and I went back downstairs, and I just continued to hang out with the cool guys downstairs instead of the lamos upstairs. So that is my story of the failed jump scare. That I mean, I don't know. It's too bad because I really wonder what would have happened too. I wonder if it would have actually scared them if one of them didn't discover me and just make me feel I don't know, I just did something that was very, very, it was a huge mistake because, they won't get scared of a jump scare in real life. They'll only get scared when a big $1 million movie studio plays a loud noise in a movie and tells them to be scared, But anyways, back to Insidious 2. On the bright side, this movie already fixed... Well, actually, no, it didn't. I was going to say that this movie fixed some of the flaws from the first movie, because in the opening 10 minutes, the demon scratches the psychic, but that was not the demon, that was the ghost in this movie. This movie, it just completely revolves around the quote-unquote old lady ghost. And she scratches the psychic Elise. Is it in the flashback? I can't remember. This movie's so overly complicated, I don't know. But as well, something that I really appreciated is that they added all the color back into the movie. Or most of it. The movie looks so much better than the first movie. The first Insidious is probably one of the ugliest movies I've ever seen. And I was really happy that they just added the color back in. Unfortunately, there was no scene where Rose Byrne was bending over in the kitchen. That was actually very sad, but they did add the color back into the movie, so I really liked that a lot. That made me think wow, this movie could actually be really good. I'm really excited to see what they're gonna do. And then, yeah, this movie, one of the worst things about it, because when this movie started, the first thing that I saw was the Blumhouse logo, and that's when I was uh-oh, that's not a good sign. And what do you know? The movie is full of jump scares. There are so many jump scares in this movie. They're all the same types of things. They play a loud noise, and there's a little scare, and it's just that they're really, really lame, too. Like, there's this one where Rose walks through this room, and she sees that there's this baby toy there, and she walks by it. She knows it's there, and then she wants to leave the room, and for some reason, she's so stupid that she trips over the toy, or almost trips over it, and it's like a scare. And it's like, this is really, really stupid. Like, like she knew that toy was there. And for some reason, she's so, like, out of it that she's still, like, gonna trip over it on her way back out of the room. Another thing that I liked about this movie was that the Mormons, as I like to call them, Tucker and Specs, they are now dressed in normal people clothes for, I think, the majority of the movie. And I really appreciated that. In general, one of my favorite things about this movie was them. I really liked those two. I really liked their chemistry with each other. I really liked watching them try to help this family, even though they don't really have Elise there with them, or they do sometimes. In the spirit world, but in general, it's mostly them, and they have to help the family, and, you know, they were very, very good. They were very funny at certain points. I found myself laughing at a lot of the jokes with them, which is also very rare, because in these modern horror movies, usually I get so irritated by how bad they are that I just can't laugh at things they want me to laugh at, because I'm just so, like, irritated by how bad, just all the bad shit. And so I was kind of liking this movie at this point. But there is something funny that happens too, where, you know, Elise, she came off as a very realistic character. She didn't really come off as, like, a stereotype, like one of those kooky psychics, like the Tiffany Haddish character in the Haunted Mansion 2023. Well, they kind of ruined that a little bit, because the Mormons, they're at, I guess it's Elisa's house, and they go down to the reading room, the room where Elise does the readings. And I'm not kidding you guys when I say that this room looks like it's Buffalo Bill's hideout from Silence of the Lambs. You know, like, it looks almost exactly like Buffalo Bill's, like, little room, you know, with, like, all the decorations and things, and the colors and everything, and the beads in the doorway. And I was like, what? And then they had a mannequin, and it was sitting in the corner in a really creepy way, and it had the gas mask contraption on. And I thought, like, why did they make Elisa's reading room look like Buffalo Bill's room and Silence of the Lambs? That was such a strange set design choice. But you know what I thought, or what I should have thought at that point? They're trying to set this up for another sequel in a franchise where, you know, they're using these two characters, and so they've got to set this up now. They've got to show the reading room. They've got to, you know, add on to this story so that in another sequel we can see this little Scooby gang solving mysteries together, because I guess for the next two movies, it's not even about the main family, it's about other stories. And it should have been a little obvious to me, because there is that feeling that, like, this is kind of a trailer for what could be a franchise, which I don't think that this movie series should have been a franchise. I think the first movie was good enough, even though it was bad. It was a very straightforward story, and it had a couple of things that were okay, and it could have been a lot better. But then the sequel, even though it kind of improves on the first one, there's a lot to it that just feels like wholly unnecessary. And feels like, was this really, like, did we really need Insidious 2? Did we really need 3 and 4 and 5? I don't think so. I mean, they did the Saw 3 thing, because, you know, Leigh Whannell, he's also involved in making these Insidious movies. They did the Saw 3 thing, where they killed Jigsaw in Saw 3 prematurely, and in this series, they killed off the psychic prematurely. And they're struggling with that this whole movie, and it just makes you think, like, maybe you shouldn't have killed off the psychic if you wanted to do a franchise, you know? Maybe you shouldn't have killed off, like, the best actor in the whole movie, because I found myself also realizing in this sequel that Lin Shaye's character was definitely the best thing about the first movie. She gave the best performance. I was really missing her the whole time I was watching this sequel, and they kind of play with that, and then she comes back and it's like, oh, I missed her, and she's there to kind of help save the day. But I just thought, like, you shouldn't have killed her off. It was stupid. And you know that it was stupid, and so now you have to do all this course correction, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. There's probably one of the funniest moments of the movie, because we know that Patrick Wilson's character, he is possessed by the ghost woman. There's a really funny moment where the grandma opens up a door, and Patrick Wilson is just standing there. They play a loud noise, and he's like, whoa! It's like, it's really funny and kind of stupid. Like, it's just like they have to find all these jump scares that they can do, because they think that the only way that a movie can be a horror movie is if you have a jump scare. There's another funny jump scare. It starts off as a very creepy scene where the mom tries to get into the baby's room and it's locked, and she can hear the evil ghost woman slapping it and yelling at it. And then she gets in there, the baby's gone, and it's in like another room or something like that, or it's on the floor. And then all of a sudden the evil ghost woman pops out of nowhere. They play a loud noise that's a jump scare, and then she slaps the wife, Rose Byrne, and she falls unconscious on the ground. So yeah, that they just totally ruined that really creepy scene with like a funny bad moment where they just had to have a jump scare. And they add in another psychic because they killed off the main one in the first movie for some reason. And the main thing that he likes to do, this old guy, he likes to roll dice that have letters on them so that he can ask questions, and they mostly always give him answers, and it's just kind of dumb. And then it turns out that the grandma has a personal connection to the female ghost. That's also kind of dumb because it just kind of ruins the mystery of the first movie. I mean, it was creepy in the first movie. You know, we didn't know anything about any of the monsters or the ghosts or the demons. And now they give this whole backstory. They give this whole explanation to who this old lady ghost is. And basically, it is this old man, and he's a cross-dresser because he grew up being abused by his mom, and her evil ghost tells him to kill people. So he's still transvestite as an adult, and he's just going around killing people. And yeah, it's just kind of like Psycho a little bit. So that was also kind of like reminiscent of Psycho. Kind of stupid. And then they had this probably the worst acting moment of the whole movie. They had this flashback where the grandma was taking Josh around the hospital for some reason, and she says, "Should this be pizza night or mac and cheese?" And he says, "Mac and cheese." And the way that she delivers this next line is just like the worst line reading ever. She's like, "Okay, that can be done." It's just like, and it wasn't even that enthusiastic. She was like, "Okay, that can be done." It was like a robot reading that line. It was like, "Mac and cheese. Okay, that can be done." Oh, that was so funny. This movie also follows the modern movie trend where I don't think that, I don't know if I'm wrong, but I don't really notice it a lot in older movies. Maybe it's just because they're better a lot of the times, but a lot of the times in these modern movies, they'll have this certain type of plot structure where you have the A-team in the story, and in this case, the A-team is the father, the wife, and the kids. They're having the main story go on. Meanwhile, you have the B-team, which is Specs Tucker, the grandma, and the guy psychic, and they're going around searching for answers while the clock is ticking at home. And I don't know, it was just kind of boring. Like they mainly, this movie was mainly just about walking around searching for answers and searching for exposition. It wasn't like the first one where most of the movie was about hauntings that are actively happening to them at their own house. This movie was mainly about going on a jump scare scavenger hunt. Now, there was a good moment in the movie to me, one of my favorite moments. The Mormons go into this little girl's room, but then they're kind of uncertain whether it's a boy's or a girl's room. And then there's this ghost, and it looks like it's a little girl, but it's obviously the little boy in girl's clothing. And he tells them that they can't be there or he'll be ordered to kill them. And it's really funny because this was like one of the realistic moments of the movie where the Mormons look at each other and they're like, "Yeah, we should go." And they just leave the room. And I thought that was really funny and smart. That, like, in all these other horror movies, they go up to the little girl, they tap her on the shoulder, and then they get attacked. But instead, she threatens them, or he threatens them, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to go." So I really like that. So earlier on in the movie, there's two brothers in this movie. One of them, Lester, he's like the forgotten one because they literally don't care about him at all. Like, they don't give him any attention at all. Like, he would be, if this movie series was the Scream series, he would be the next Ghostface for sure. Because his family, like, doesn't give a shit about him. All they care about is Dalton. Like, it's really bad. So, Lester, earlier in the movie, he wants to play telephone with Dalton. And I was thinking, this is not really something that a lot of kids do nowadays. Where you have the two tin cans and the string, and you play telephone. And I was thinking, he is only having him play telephone with him so that later on in the movie they can use the telephone game to do a stupid jump scare and then also play a part later in the story. And that's exactly what they do. They end up doing this little jump scare scene. It starts off as a creepy moment. there's a ghost voice talking in the telephone thing, and it's not the brother, but then they ruin it with two big jump scares that they kind of do like a Nightmare on Elm Street thing where the ghosts are attacking Dalton and they're tearing up his sheet, and it's actually tearing up in real life. So I guess it's kind of like the rules of this universe. It's kind of like Nightmare on Elm Street's rules. Now, this was one of the stupidest parts of the movie here. And see, there's so much stuff, so many notes that I took. Carl, the new psychic, very, very generic guy. Not really interesting at all, like Elise. He is standing below a chandelier, and a screw falls from the chandelier, and then he rolls the dice, and the ghost there tells him that they've come there to die. And the idiot doesn't go like, oh, wait a second, maybe I should move out of the way of this old-timey chandelier. And this is where they rip off Phantom of the Opera, and the chandelier unscrews itself and it almost kills them. And I was like, wow, that was really dumb. And then here's some more bad lines in the movie. They finally know who they're with in this house because they're investigating these characters, and the psychic says, we're here with Mother Mortis, Mother of Death. And then one of the Mormons, he asks, what does that mean? And then the psychic says, it's literal. And it's like, no fucking shit. It's literal. Mother Mortis, Mother of Death, duh. It's literal. Like, what, why? I mean, and you know as well as I do, they put those lines in there because they thought the audience was too dumb to figure out that it was literal. Like, and that's another thing. They think the audience is very stupid in a lot of these modern horror movies. And then we had another hilarious jump scare where the grandma comes home and the mom is outside and like she closes a car door or something, and the grandma jumps out at her and jump scares her. and she does the movie cliche thing where she says, we gotta talk, but we can't talk here. And that turns out to just be a distraction so that the Mormons can try to subdue the husband. And they bring in the new psychic guy. They prematurely killed off Elise. And he has to confront the dad. You know what, too? It would have been so much scarier if Elise had survived the attack in the first movie and she had to go confront him again or something. But then again, that wouldn't make sense because why wouldn't her two guys just be with her? So, whatever. And they have this funny fake out too, where Carl, the new psychic, he almost gets killed. And it was actually a pretty well done sequence until he gets killed. But then when he gets killed, in the further, the dad tells him, you're dead now. And he's just like, ugh. You know, he doesn't act like it's a big deal at all. And I felt like that was stupid. There is a cool part in the further, though, where they kind of justify having the flashback at the beginning of the movie. Because there's this part where Josh points at this door and it opens and they go back there. And at the beginning of the movie, you don't know why, and we find out that it's because in the present day, they're interacting with him in the past somehow, and it was because of that. And it's just, so complicated. And all of a sudden, too, an hour and 30 minutes into the movie, Dalton becomes a part of the story again, he randomly decides to astral project and go find his father, and also take the telephone with him so that they can go back to the real world. And then they finally just blatantly rip off The Shining, where the husband, Patrick Wilson, the whole movie, he's like, I'm Patrick Wilson, and I'm gonna act crazy for this movie. That's what he sounds like. He's trying to break through this wall with a fire extinguisher, and then at the same time you have the wife, and she's standing by and she looks exactly like Wendy in The Shining. She's got like a little tiny weapon, and they kind of frame this shot to just 100% like almost like match The Shining. And so I thought that was stupid, because the whole movie, I was already getting the feeling that this was kind of like The Shining, because the husband, he was not himself. He was being possessed by these ghosts, or by the old lady ghost, whatever. And so it already kind of felt like that. They didn't need to blatantly rip off The Shining. And then Elise saves the family from being killed by bashing the evil woman's brains in the further. I thought that was kind of weird. That didn't really make sense. It just felt like it was kind of random. Like, I feel like in a lot of these paranormal movies, they just kind of have to improvise the way to defeat the bad guy, like the writers. Like, they came up with this whole concept, and they're like, oh, wait, how do we even defeat the bad guy? Oh, well, the psychic, she bashes in the spirit's brains, and somehow that works. But it was cool, I guess, because, I do like Elisa's character, so I thought it was cool that she got to save the day. And then they also decided at the last minute that the Carl cannot die. And at that point, that's when I knew, like, oh, they're going to do more sequels. Because for about, like, 20 minutes, they told you that Carl was dead. But then all of a sudden, Elise was like, oh, no, wait, you're actually not dead. You don't belong here. I felt your heartbeat. You're still alive. It's like, oh, that's really random. So, yeah, that was, like, totally like, oh, he can't die because he's got to be in the sequel. The guy who rolls the dice. And I will say, too, another good thing is that at least he only rolls dice. He doesn't put on a gas mask and, like, sniff the ghost's farts or something, like Elise liked to do. That's what she did in the first movie. She almost died. But, like, in this movie, instead, like, Carl, he just takes out his little dice and he rolls them around to find answers. Like, it's pretty funny. Honestly, like, you think, like, I don't know. It's just kind of queer, like, these characters in these movies. They have to have these little things that they're known for doing. Like, you had Elise, and she had the gas mask thing that she loved using, and now you have to have Carl, and he likes to use dice. It's pretty weird. In real life, psychics, they don't really do that a lot. Like, whenever they do the drawing stuff, it's usually the psychic themselves doing the drawing. And they didn't even have any drawings in this movie. So, that's another thing that I should have mentioned in the first movie review, is that it was stupid that the Mormons had to draw for Elise. Elise should have been drawing herself, but then again, she just was copying the drawings that were on the wall in Dalton's room. And then the family at the end, after everything has been resolved, everything's back to normal, the family is hypnotized to forget about everything that happened once again. And I thought that this was pretty stupid, because the whole point of the first movie was that it was a mistake to hypnotize Josh when he was a boy. Right? Like, in the first movie, a lot of the problems, like, it wouldn't have turned out the way they turned out if not for them already knowing about these things. Like, they had to have all that explanation. The grandma had to tell them, no, actually, Josh is a boy. You had this and that, these problems. And also, too, there was a whole sequence in this movie where the dad was going around trying to find memories of the old woman so that he could find her or something. I don't know. It's just confusing as hell. But he spent like a whole 10 minutes of the movie searching for memories. And then in the present day, after the whole situation is resolved, he's like, oh, let's erase my memory again. I just felt like that was dumb, but at least it kind of felt like, okay, we're leaving this family. The series can be over now. We corrected some of the problems from part 1. We did a decent sequel that was just okay, and we did the best we could. Nope. That you can't do that. Can't do that, especially with Blumhouse. You know, Blumhouse was like, oh, really? Insidious, this should be a franchise, and we should have a whole bunch of movies about random ghost hunting adventures that, you know, are just like the other modern horror movies. Lots of jump scares, lots of comedy, lots of just generic stuff. The ending sets up a whole new story with a whole new family. I actually kind of like this ending, though, because it felt like, you know, even though this was definitely like a setup for a franchise, it didn't have to be. Like, if they had ended the series after this movie, that ending would have been very, very good. You know, it's showing that Elise, even though she's dead, she's still going along with the Mormons to help them solve these cases. And also, I found out, too, that apparently in the next movie, they don't even get into this mystery that they set up at the end of this movie. So once again, like, this series should not have been continued. Because why would they set that up at the end if they're not going to resolve it? You know? And it was funny, too, because guess who one of the family members was? It was Jenna Overrated Ortega as a child. And she's there, and she's like, I saw that woman there. And it's Elise, and she comes in, and she's like, shh, shut up, Wednesday. Shut the fuck up. No one's supposed to know I'm here. This is a cutesy ending cameo. Shut up. And she walks past her, and she goes inside to talk to this other girl who's gotten really fucked up. She's sitting there in a vegetable state, staring into space, thinking about all the time she's been fucked with by ghosts. And then she sees this monster ghost in the corner, or a demon or something, and it's like this black figure, and it's like, and I don't know what it was doing. It was like singing a heavy metal song or something, and then Elise is like, and it just ends on Elise screaming. So yeah, I mean, as I said, the whole review, you know, there were some things I liked. There were some things I didn't like. And in general, like, I just wish that it was better, because one of the things that I really didn't like was the lack of the wife. The lack of Rose Byrne. She became, like, less of an important character in part 1 near the end. But I felt like, since this was the sequel, and since the husband was evil, why wasn't she, like, more of a character? Because, like, I wanted to see more of her. I wanted to see, like, more of Dalton. I wanted to see, like, more of this family. In most of the movie, it's really just the Mormons, and also the new psychic and the grandma. Maybe it's just because the actors didn't really want to do it. I don't know. I really don't know. So anyways, my grade for this movie, I just had mac and cheese for lunch. I wasn't even going to have mac and cheese, but after that kid talked about it, I was like, okay, I'm having mac and cheese too. It's Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day sucks, so I'm going to have some mac and cheese. And there's a certain type of mac and cheese. It's called Kraft Rich and Creamy. And it's okay. But to me, I just don't see the point in having that when you could just have Kraft Original Recipe. And I feel like this movie is Kraft Rich and Creamy. It's okay. It does some things that are good. It's creamy. I didn't really notice that it was creamier though. It's just kind of a different flavor a little bit. It's not really the most interesting or different thing I've ever eaten. It's just kind of there. And, there's a lot of mac and cheeses that they're just kind of there. They're just kind of boring. They're just kind of okay. And I feel like this movie is a Kraft thick and creamy movie. So anyways, please like this video and comment and tell me if you like this more than the first one. I would understand why you liked the first one better if you did, because the first one had a straightforward story. And the second one's story is just up and down and up and down and up and down. They fucked around with it too much. They just should have focused on, telling a scary story. I don't know if the third or fourth or fifth one will be any good, but maybe they will be. Hopefully. And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.